Everybody doesn't win. And the sooner you wake up to that biology is ruthless, man, then you get a little fear in you. And when you get a little fear in you, you start listening. Because if you're truly afraid, you listen. Let a little fear come in and drive you and motivate you. We're set up for failure because we think we're going north, but we're going south. That's why 50% of people who get married divorce, 80% of businesses fail. That's why 30% of Americans are on some form of antidepressant medication. That's why 60-70% of people are overweight. I mean, in a way, we're kind of fucked. But we live in a society that's very narcissistic. You're told like, oh, everybody's a winner. No, not everybody's a winner. That's like saying everybody's blonde. There's a definition of what blonde is. Blonde is like this yellowish hair. So you lose meaning when you start going, everybody's blonde. When you see your life and anytime there should be pain, you go, no, 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 no. It was just how it was meant to be. No, look yourself in the mirror sometimes and go, you know why I'm not happy? It's because I didn't listen 10 years ago and I got in the wrong career. You know I'm not happy? Because I married the wrong damn person. It wasn't meant to happen. Yes, everything happens for a reason. You made a bad choice, but it didn't have to be that way. And the second you build up pain, and this, by the way, is not my opinion. If you talk to guys like Dr. David Buss, top 10 most cited psychologist in history, okay? He's one of my main mentors. He told me, I said, do adults change? Like, we do all this self-help videos and podcasts. I said, am I wasting my time? He goes, yeah, kind of. I said, why? He said, well, after 25, it's very hard to teach old dogs new tricks. By the way, that's why I've changed. Most of my stuff targets people 18 to 25. That's why I do Snapchat and all that, because there's hope for 18 to 25-year-olds. Now, if you're over 25, before you get depressed, he told me, but I have good news for you, Ty. I said, what? He said, adults learn through massive trauma. So you will learn. You have to let in some trauma into your life. And that's rough, but no pain, no gain. Like if you are 100 pounds overweight, and you want to be able to play basketball, here's my news for you. Everything happened for a reason. You got fat because you ate too much and you didn't exercise. So welcome to the gym. In the first year is going to be hell, but that pain hopefully will reprogram your brain that every time you want to eat that nasty thing, go, wait, I don't want to go through that pain again. So I think one of the myths of society is we won't let pain in. We just excuse it all away. Like, no, that was meant to happen. Oh, you wasted 20 years of life and married the wrong person in the wrong career? No. Tom, it was meant to happen. Where's the people who go, you fucked up, dude. You wasted 20 years and you will never get it back. You better go in your room and cry. And the truth is, you only learn as an adult. Unfortunately, most people can only change with massive trauma. Optimizing your life for hustling and grinding is like optimizing your life around going pee. No, pee is something you have to do. It's not the goal. You don't go, woo! You know what my goal is? Hit the toilet 7 times a day. No, but you have to do it to survive. So grinding and working hard and hustling is not what you optimize for. It's pain. Why would you optimize for pain? But it is a necessity. And if you look at an actual scientific explanation of what makes you successful, it is not just hard work. If that's true, construction workers would be the wealthiest people in the world. Waiters and busboys, they work harder than the owner. The most scientific psychometric personality test is called Hexaco. It's more accurate than Big Five, which used to be. It's much more accurate than Myers-Briggs, INFJ, ENTP, all that stuff. So Hexaco tests you on 26 facets of your personality. And one of them is called conscientiousness. And it's been proven over and over by scientists, conscientiousness is the most correlated with business success.
Define conscientiousness.
So then it divides into 4 sub-facets. Organization, perfectionism, diligence, and prudence. So the real truth is hard work is 25% of the formula because diligence is known in the common language as hard work, okay? So if you just think diligence alone will get you success, you're like a basketball player that thinks you'll play in the NBA because you can shoot free throws. You ever seen the best free throw shooters in the world? They're old 70-year-old men who shoot underhanded, but they don't play in the NBA because the NBA is not all about free throws. So NBA is scoring, defense, free throws maybe is one component, rebounding, assists, there's a lot of components. So the other three you have to get good at. So the first one is perfectionism. People, you have to know how to double check your work. It's that simple. It doesn't mean you're always a perfectionist, but it means when it's important, when you're a pilot of an airplane, double check before you go. If you get on a plane, you hear the pilots double checking, the co-pilot going, hydraulics. And the guy goes, hydraulics. And that's why planes don't crash. And it's called 6 Sigma. It's 3 defects per million. Your goal in business and in life on the important things is to make 3 mistakes per million transactions. And the only way you do that is by being a perfectionist in terms of double checking. So that's 25%. The next one is organization. I can't tell you how much better my life is, and anybody watching this will be, if you wake up every single day and you take 10 minutes. I have yellow notepads sitting all around my house. I got that from Bill Gates. Bill Gates built Microsoft at 17 by locking himself in a hotel room with 6 yellow notepads, and he wrote out the whole basic code for DOS and things that built Microsoft, okay? He became the richest man in the world 18 years straight because he was organized enough to lock himself in a room and think through his day. And so what I try to do, and whenever I do this, I have a great day. Whenever I don't, I notice it. Be organized a little bit, 10 minutes. I actually have this little couch thing outside of my shower, and I put a notepad by it. I take a shower when I wake up. I walk over to that, I kind of sit there, and I just write out, it can be as little as 3 main projects you want to get done that day. So organization is the other 25%. So now, and then you have diligence, which is hard work, hustle, and perseverance. But the last one is the kicker. And this is what I was talking about, the rewiring that has to happen. The last one is something called prudence. Scientists call this prudence. Prudence is the ability to make the right decision. And I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs and non-entrepreneurs, even me at times too, I'm not special, I'm lumping all of us in this. Because of our upbringing in society, our goal is, let's say our goal is like that camera right there. So let's assume that's north. So I have this compass in my brain, and my goal is to go right there. Let's say it's a mile away, so north. What happens if society, my upbringing in school, wired my compass exactly backwards? So I think, let's say I can't see that camera, but I know I want to go north. So I pull out my compass, and it points that way. So I just take off walking. And I do it in an organized fashion. I do it in a perfectionist manner. I'm perfecting my steps and my posture. I'm also working on, hard work and hustle. Keep walking towards your goal. Well, the truth is, if you go south when you should go north, you could have gone 1 mile, but the earth is about 24,000 miles in circumference. So you get to walk 24,000 miles, and you'll come up on the backside, and you will get your goal. That's most entrepreneurs. The average person takes 20 years to become a millionaire. 90% of businesses fail within the first 5 years, 80 to 90, depending on what statistic. Most people, I did the math once, the average American has $60,000 saved by the time they're about 60 years old. So my answer, I did the math, you can do this with a simple financial calculator. Everybody in America, your parents, everybody you know will be a millionaire if they live to 160. At 160 years old, if you take 60 grand at age 60 and you give it a decent return on investment, 8%, 10%, you'll be a millionaire at 160. But the problem is, the great philosopher, I think it was Aristotle or Socrates, said, the problem is art is long, but life is short. The art of living and getting to your objective is long, but it doesn't have to be. It's long if your compass is backwards. So the whole point of what I was saying about adventure at the beginning is I'm trying to take myself and point it to the true north. And you have to learn that from books and mentors and life experience and listening and finding in-person mentors and all those things. They help adjust your compass. And most people are going to get what they want just about 40 years longer.
Are there like key principles though that you can use to turn that compass so north actually points north?
Yes. First one is just like Alcoholics Anonymous, admit you're lost. And that one's hard for people. You tell people, even for me, sometimes I want to think I'm smart and I got it all figured out. And sometimes I'm like, wait a sec, I'm still lost. And the acquiescence, the admittance of the fact that you're still lost it gets you on track a lot faster. So if you're watching this and you feel lost, it's better to just sit down and be like, I'm lost. Because the day you admit you're lost is the day you allow yourself to be found by people who can give you a tip.
But what's the equivalent of that? Because obviously if you're an entrepreneur, nobody's looking for you. So that's the one
They are
catch,
though.
right? Who is?
They are. You go to Barnes & Noble, people selling their books. They're looking for you as a customer.
So read.
Read. I mean, the fact that people argue with me on this reading thing, and people argue with me about mentors. No, just use your own gut feeling. Is that how you learn English? When you were 2 years old, you use your gut feeling to start conjugating verbs? No, you learn from other people. You learn manners, you learn language, you learn all things valuable. You learn to drive from another person. So doesn't it make sense you learn life? So books are just the mentors who maybe are dead now. You want to learn about Steve Jobs? He ain't alive to teach you. But you can learn through accumulated wisdom. And that's why, just trust me, very few powerful businessmen I've ever met don't read a lot. Warren Buffett, who I think is the best businessman by far in the world, he has 75 companies that he pretty much runs, 200 billion in revenue. He reads 8 hours a day. He reads 600. He said he slowed down in his old age. He only reads 500 pages a day. Bill Gates goes on reading vacations. Mark Zuckerberg just started a reading once a week book club on Facebook. It already got a couple million followers. And now with audio books, there's no excuse. You got YouTube videos. Let this thing run in the background. And it's better if you can find it. I mean, better than books is in-person mentoring. That's why I do a podcast. I started Google AdWords in 2001. Okay, I got lucky. I just stumbled and I was one of the first people to ever use online advertising. I was in, I think, the second month Google AdWords launched. Whoa. And there was no YouTube videos. There was no Perry Marshall books. There was nothing. You just kind of wasted money to learn. Now, we're the most spoiled generation. Everything, this computer on this phone, iPhone 7, is more powerful than the first rocket that put man on the moon. That cost billions of dollars. Now we get that for under $1,000. And people are still like, I'm lost. Yes, you're lost. Sit down and then open up Safari and go, how to do Google ads. And you're gonna come up, let's see what I come up with. AdWords, they have their own tutorial. WordStream, Jumpify, you got some paid stuff. Then you have some free stuff on HubSpot. If you sit in a chair, Charlie Munger calls it assiduity. Put your ass in a chair. Sit there and focus without being, the average American right now, the average person in the world, our attention span has dropped to 5 seconds. The sad news is the average goldfish has 6 seconds. We're now competing with goldfish and the goldfish are winning. So if you don't have assiduity to sit down, read, there is no solution for you. You will always be poor because you'll always be beat by somebody who's willing to sit in the chair.
Is there a way for people to build that discipline?
Yes, pain. And that's why I'm not a big believer in delusion. You asked me, one of the rewiring things we have to do in this world, I'll tell you one. You ever heard this myth? Everything happens for a reason, so just accept it. Well, there's kind of truth to that. If I jump off a building and break my legs, yes, everything happened for a reason. The reason was gravity. Like that's why you break your legs, and physics. Legs brittle, concrete not brittle. So, but people interpret everything happens for a reason, be like, well, I was meant to learn from that thing, and then BS. Read Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene, one of the most important books written in the last century. He says, organisms that only learn through trial and error lose to organisms that can learn through other people's trial and error. Is anybody here, we got a little live audience, anybody here ever had to be hit by a car to learn to look both ways? I didn't. I kind of learned from just somebody telling me, big car, 2 tons, velocity, smash, dead. And I now always look both ways. So if your myth is that the only way you're gonna learn is just through massive mistakes and trials and error, you haven't read Richard Dawkins' book. If you believe in evolution, or even you don't, you believe in creationism or whatever, why do we have big brains? Because we do have the biggest brains on planet Earth. Not always use them, but we got the biggest potential. It's to be able to, what Richard Dawkins called, project. So you can literally sit in this chair and predict outcomes without having to do them. And because we're all narcissists because of society and Instagram and all this, and I'm guilty of that too, we don't like to be uncomfortable because a narcissist's story to themselves is, you're the best. And so your worldview is messed up. That's a wiring issue. Let me put it this way. I meet people who think they're smart, okay? What it really tells me is they've never been around actual smart people. If you're really smart watching this, let's say you have 155 IQ. That's what Bill Gates has, and Albert Einstein were up there. My step-grandfather had 155 IQ. He speaks 14 languages fluently. He can write Chinese. He's a chess master. He can play 3 other chess masters without looking at the board while they look at the board and beat all of them. If you're smart, you can do that. If you're not, I got good news for you. Warren Buffett says you only need about a 125 IQ to be very successful. But it's better to stay in your lane and just go, I'm not that smart, but you can hire 155 IQs. But that's an example of what I'm talking about, of this rewiring.
Right.
So these practical things will change your life.
All right, since you have a concept called never be the bitch of your own mind.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Your mind is driven by deep evolutionary drives. So, for example, narcissism is a protection mechanism, right? So your mind wants to tell you you're amazing. It makes you its bitch. You have to override that and go, you know what, I'm not that amazing. So let me go learn from amazing people.
Do you have methods for people to do that? Because I think that's so important. So I tell people, don't trust everything that your mind says. Certainly
Yes.
don't buy into all of your emotions. Just because you have an emotion doesn't mean that you have to act in accordance with that. But how do you help people get over that? How do they overcome that?
I think humans, for the most part, learn by osmosis. So it's hard to lecture people into success. But what you could do is you could inspire people to understand this. So for example, if school system could find all the 14-year-olds and find out what they admire in people, right? It's the reason I show Lamborghinis and Ferraris, because I got a lot of young followers. And you know what 19-year-old guys like? Lamborghinis and Ferraris. So I show that part of my life because then they listen to the other stuff. So first you gotta lead by inspiration. This has been proven over. You cannot pound stuff into people's brain. People actually do the opposite. When parents tell their kids, you gotta read, nobody reads. But if I show a Lamborghini and Ferrari, which is the reward that people want, and then people go, how do you get it? I said, see all these books, I read them and put it, then people, I have more school kids reading books, I think, than anyone in history. I don't say that cocky. I'm telling you, it astounds me because all I had to do was put up a video with Lamborghinis.
Right.
When you're the bitch of your brain, you go, I'm just gonna freewheel this day. It's very hard to be organized. We're not, dogs aren't organized. Do you ever see your dog organizing day? So if you wanna, you can either act on the animal side, which is just a wing life, or you can operate from a sense of logic and duty. And so I learned somewhat, I'm not even as good as Joel, to not be the bitch of my mind by just being around him for a while. And so that's the best way. Find somebody that you look at them and you go, this is a person of discipline, of motivation, self-motivation. They don't need external motivation. They're motivated from within, and spend all the time you can around them. And so for all of you who are really big on the hustle your ass off, hustle in the networking side. It will help you because you never know who you're sitting next to. That's why I'm a big believer in going to conferences. Berkshire Hathaway conference. It's the first week of May of every year. These dudes are gonna die soon. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett. You can buy a B share for under 500 bucks. Buy a B share, you get a free ticket. It's insane. You sit there with 2 men on stage in a stadium of 18,000 of the top investors in the world.
Wow.
It costs you under 500 bucks. You sit there, it's only one day. I fly into Omaha and fly back out almost the same day. And you walk out just motivated. You're with the guy that their business, you know, we meet businesses and they're like, oh, I'm doing 100 million a year. They did 200 billion in revenue last year. I see people making fun of the Kardashians. I'm like, you're gonna make fun of the Kardashians? Look, Kylie Jenner, the youngest Kardashian, in the last 18 months has done $400 million in revenue on lipstick kits and various makeup things with Kylie Cosmetics. Put that in perspective. L'Oreal, Maybelline, massive brands. It took them 50 years as an organization with thousands of employees to do what Kylie Jenner did by herself at 20 at 18. You gonna laugh at the Kardashians? Do you have to agree with everything the Kardashians? No. But like Abraham Lincoln said, I learn from everybody, even if sometimes it's what not to do. So you can just go into the Kardashians, reverse engineer their success, go, I like this, I like this, I like this, I don't like that, then leave out what you don't like. If you can pick up one gold nugget, whether it's from an in-person mentor, whether it's from a book, you become very wealthy in knowledge very quickly. One nugget a day. One nugget a day. It's like Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's business partner, said, step by step you get ahead, but not necessarily in fast spurts. But you have to prepare for the fast spurts by learning step by step. Like you want to become like a supercomputer where you just download smart crap from smart people. And you pick and choose. Like some people are like, Ty, I don't agree with everything you say. I'm like, good, I don't agree with everything I say. Like a year later, I'm like, wait, I was wrong.
Harnessing the power of water has proven very useful in the generation of electricity. Acting like natural batteries, large bodies of water in conjunction with dams can provide many thousands of megawatts of electrical energy. However, like all sources of power, mishandling can end in disastrous results. Usually this channel doesn't tend to look at non-polluting power sources. However, the disaster we're looking at today took the lives of 74 people and caused millions of rubles worth of damage, so ticks most of the boxes for a plainly difficult video. Today we're looking at the catastrophic Sayano-Shushenskia power station accident, and I'm going to rate it about here on my patented plainly difficult disaster scale. The Sayano-Shushenskia power station is one of the world's largest hydroelectric sites and is Russia's largest. The plant has the potential to provide electricity for a city of over 3 million people, situated in Sayanogorsk, which is around here on a map. In 1960, a need for a hydroelectric plant on the Yenisei River was highlighted and surveys were undertaken to find the perfect location in 1961. Construction work began in 1963 on what would be the country's largest hydroelectric power station. The plant included the dam, reservoir and the power plant building. The first hydro project designed turbine was installed in 1978, with more turbines being installed in the following years and the whole project going online in 1985. The 242 metre high dam supports the Sayano-Shushenskia reservoir, with an area of 31.34 kilometres cubed, with a useful capacity of 15.34 kilometres cubed. The plant has 10 640 megawatt 16 blade turbines, giving a total output of 6,400 megawatts. 70% of the electrical power created on site goes to United Company Rusals for smelters in Siberia. The turbines and their generators are housed inside a 950-foot vast turbine hall. The dam used at Sayano-Shushenskia was of the arch gravity type. This design curves upstream in a way that it directs most of the water pressure against the rock walls on each side of the canyon that the dam sits in. This provides force to compress the dam, improving its strength. Such is the design of the structure that the dam has a striking curve, similar to the Hoover Dam in the USA. The need of a dam is to hold back the weight of the water kept in the reservoir behind it. This weight has a potential for electric power generation by harnessing a force that everything on Earth encounters: gravity. Electricity is produced by the opening of sluice gates on the reservoir side of the dam. Once open, the water flows down through the 620-foot-long penstocks inside the structure. The water has a high energy caused by the weight of the remaining water inside the reservoir. The water is passed through a turbine, which in turn rotates, turning a generator. For fine-tuning of the power produced by the plant, wicket gates are used and these surround the turbine. More or less power can be generated by these gates, regulating the water flow, and are vital in keeping control of the desired output. As well as varying power, these gates can be closed completely, essentially bypassing the turbine. After all this, the water is passed to an outlet gate to resume its flow down the river. Let's look at the turbine and its attached generator in more detail. Water flows in radially and exits axially. The rotational force from the flowing water through the turbine blades in the runner is transferred via a shaft to the turbine's generator. Attached to the shaft is a rotor which is made up of electromagnets around its perimeter. The electromagnets are made by circulating direct current through loops of wire around stacks of magnetic steel. Conductors are mounted around the outside inside a fixed stator. As the rotor rotates inside the stator, an electrical current is created. After this, the electricity is taken to a transformer, then to the power grid. The turbines used at the plant had a narrow band of efficient working. To reach the recommended megawatt power zone, where the turbine is most efficient, it has to transition through a not recommended zone at which excessive vibrations are generated. If the turbine's output power sits in the not recommended zone for too long, damage can be caused to the main bearing. These were split into 4 bands. Band 1 was the allowed band and was the lower end of the power spectrum. Next was band 2, also known as the not recommended zone. Then there was band 3, the recommended zone, then band 4, which was the forbidden zone. The vibrations were produced by the pulsation of the water flow and over time could wear down the turbine's mountings and bearings to a point that the unit would be unsafe to operate. The hydroelectric plant's lifetime has been mired with various issues. Many of the turbines experienced seal, vibration and bearing issues, as well as several floods. Turbine 2 had its fair share of issues ever since its installation in 1979. This particular unit had seemed to have taken a lot of the brunt of the extreme forces put upon it during its operating life. As such, by the early 2000s, it was showing its age with cracks in the turbine runner, and issues with bearings were also highlighted and replaced. Between January and March 2009, the plant was undergoing modernisation. Part of this was the installation of a new automatic control system meant to slow or speed up the turbine to match output power demands. Once again, turbine 2 had defects along its blades. Once the work had been completed, the runner had not been rebalanced, leading to vibrations once again. Although it was deemed within design specs, this vibration would wear down the bearings and mountings of the turbine. However, over the coming months, the vibrations soon began to exceed specifications. It was once again shut down for investigation. However, a strange turn of events would lead the plant down to the path of destruction. A fire alarm at the Bratsk hydroelectric plant on the 16th of August 2009. The fire took the plant offline, and in response, the Sayano-Shushenska plant was ordered to take over the regulating duties. In order to pick up the slack, the plant had to get as many turbines as possible online, including turbine 2, which had been shut down due to the excess vibrations. By the 17th of August, all but one of the turbines were pressed into action, with units 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 and 9 operating in regulating mode, with units 3, 8 and 10 generating baseload power. Unit 6 was shut down for maintenance work, and as such, more personnel than usual were in the turbine hall. Normally around 12 people staffed the vast building, but on that day, over 100 milled around the hall undertaking repair work. On the morning of the 17th, the output of Unit 2 varied widely, and because of this, it sat for too long in the dangerous band 2, aka the not recommended zone. The turbine began to vibrate, in doing so weakening its internal components. At 8:13 am, a loud bang ran out in the turbine hall. The turbine cover shot up, followed by the 920-ton rotor. The rotor, still spinning, flew across the gallery, destroying everything in its wake. The turbine was ejected from its pit under the 20 atmospheres of water pressure, exposing the penstock. Essentially, there was now no barrier between the force of the reservoir water and the turbine hull. The monumental amount of water then began gushing into the turbine hull, flowing over the other turbines and their generators, shorting them out in the process. The control room became aware of the disaster as Unit 2's electrical power output dropped to 0, causing a local blackout. The water soon cut through the structural steel and the turbine gallery roof collapsed. Workers were washed away out of the building down into the river. Some were later rescued, however, others were sadly not. The steel gates to the water intake pipes of the turbines, weighing around 150 tonnes each, were closed manually. These were held up by hydraulic jacks. The process would take at least 25 minutes. All whilst this was happening, water continued gushing out of the destroyed Unit 2. The emergency diesel generator was started and the spillway gates of the dam was opened. Units 7 and 6 continued to operate after their safety shutdown systems failed to trip. The turbines became submerged, causing damage to equipment and structures. Units 2, 7 and 9 were completely destroyed, with the remaining experiencing serious damage. Within 24 hours, over 1,500 rescue workers reached the plant, managing to save 14. In total, 75 personnel were lost during the event. The damage did not end with just the turbines and their generators, as over 100 metric tonnes of oil used on site was released into the river, causing severe environmental damage to local wildlife. By the 24th of August, the water inside the damaged buildings was pumped out, and on the 28th of August, the search and rescue operation was completed. The repair works wouldn't be completed until 2014, costing well over $1 billion. But what caused Russia's largest hydroelectric dam to self-destruct? Sadly, the answer is unsurprising and has played out many times in industries all over the world. Post-accident, an investigation was undertaken. During the probe into the cause of the disaster, retaining bolts were shown to have broken under stress. Worryingly, some of the bolts showed no sign of nut breaking, which meant that when they were installed, no nut was present. The unit was put on regulating mode when restarted on the 16th, meaning that the power output of the turbine would pass more times through the not recommended zone as it tried to match power demand. The operation of the turbine in the not recommended zone was not altered by the operators at the plant. The push to operate the unit in such an unsafe band was purely motivated by the fire at Bratsk hydroelectric plant to make up for the drop in power. This, coupled with poor maintenance, In 1926, engineers and construction workers congratulated themselves on the completion of the St Francis Dam. Little did they know, but 2 years later the fruit of their labour would be rubble and over 400 people would lose their lives. Dam disasters are intriguing as the vast structures seem indestructible as they hold back mind-blowing quantities of water. However, as we have seen many times before on this channel, engineers can and have got it wrong, and the results can be catastrophic. Today we're looking at the St Francis Dam, and I'm going to rate it here 8 on the patented plainly difficult disaster scale. St Francis Dam was located in LA County, California, USA, which is around here on a map. Our story starts with eventual superstar engineer William Mulholland. Starting off from more humble roots, in 1878 he was hired by the Los Angeles City Water Company as a ditch tender. Proving to be a good employee, Mulholland raised through the ranks, eventually reaching superintendent. During his rise to power, Mulholland had become a self-taught engineer, studying in his free time. Being a bit of a future thinker, Mulholland envisioned an aqueduct to supply Los Angeles with water from 233 miles away in the Owens Valley, plenty to allow the city to grow. Taken on as chief engineer, he oversaw the project during his construction between 1908 and 1913. The successful completion of the project, which at the time was the largest of its type, brought fame to Mulholland's door. Although clearly brilliant, Mulholland had the ability to improvise on the spot, which is why the aqueduct was built in a relatively short period of time, but sometimes this would come at the cost of shortcuts. He also had an eye for saving money, which is good for budgets, but not good for redundancy in design. To save money, his own staff performed all their own engineering calculations, without any external review. Although frugal, and ultimately okay on the aqueduct, when it comes to dam design and construction, cut corners can cause, well, we'll find out later. By the 1920s, the demand for water in Los Angeles had outstripped Mulholland's aqueduct, reaching a population close to 1 million. Unfortunately, the rise in population ran in parallel with a drought in the region. You see, the area was subject to below normal rainfall, 2 out of every 3 years, as quoted by Mulholland himself, and as such, rainfall was very boom or bust, leading to the idea of creating a large reservoir to store up rain from the good years to help the city through the bad. Mulholland proposed an ambitious plan to increase the reservoir capacity around the city near his aqueduct's terminus. The project would involve modifying existing waterworks and constructing 7 entirely new dams, the largest of which would be the St. Francis. The new dam would store 30,000 acre-feet of water, roughly the amount consumed by city residents in 1922. Surveys for the location for the new dam began in 1922. Eventually the site was settled upon and initial clearing works began. Strangely, but understandably, the initial building works went on with little fanfare, but this was because Mulholland had been burnt before. During the aqueduct construction, sabotage cost the project money as disgruntled locals and landowners sought to cause trouble. By July 1st, 1924, preliminary clearing works had been completed and main construction works would begin around 6 weeks later. But first we need to look at the design of this shiny new to be built dam. The basic design was actually copied from the Mulholland Dam built a year before by, you guessed it, Mulholland, designed by Edgar A. Bailey. This would be the second dam constructed of concrete by the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Chief Engineer W. W. Holbert supervised the transfer of the design from the Mulholland location to the St. Francis location. The main changes were adjustments to fit the new setting of the St. Francis area. As such, Bill Mulholland didn't manage the project on a micro level like he had on other designs before. This was exacerbated by him being distracted by the concept of a Colorado River aqueduct. Before the designs of both dams, the engineering team studied a number of recent concrete dams such as the Arrow Rock Dam in Idaho and the Elephant Butte Dam in New Mexico. A storage capacity of 32,000 acre-feet and an elevation of 1,825 feet above sea level was envisioned in 1924 after initial survey work. The height of the dam was increased by 10 feet to allow a water capacity of 38,000 acre-feet in 1925. The increased size necessitated the construction of a 588-foot long dike along the top of the ridge next to the western abutment. This was not in the original design. As such, the foundations were not widened for the extra height. The design incorporated a curved plan laid out on a radius of 500 feet, with a distinctive series of 5-foot high vertical steps on the downstream face of the main dam. Each step was unique in its width and was a simple solution to building a complex curve. The dam didn't have a provision for groutable contraction joints, however. A concrete batch plant was built in the canyon of the dam and local aggregate was incorporated with around 1 barrel of Portland cement per cubic yard of concrete. When the concrete was poured, little thought was given to contractions due to heat given off whilst curing. This, combined with the oversight for contraction joints, left the dam inflexible and potentially unstable. The reservoir that the dam would hold back began being filled in March 1926, with water diverted from the Owens River Aqueduct, and the completed dam was opened in May 1926. During reservoir filling, a number of small cracks and leaks were detected but thought to be within expected tolerances. Between March and June, the reservoir filled at a rate of about 1.8 feet per day, and on May 10, 1927, the reservoir pool reached an elevation of 1,832 feet, just 3 feet below the spillway crest. Summer demand kept the water level at that elevation. During the winter months between 1927 and 1928, the reservoir was allowed to fill up to just 3 inches below the spillway. By around February, all of LA's reservoirs were beginning to fill up, and on the 7th of March, aqueduct water was no longer diverted to the reservoir. Damkeeper Tony Harnischweger alerted the company on the morning of the 12th to dirty water cascading down the slope below the dam's right abutment. The presence of dirty water can give an indication of foundation erosion. Because the reservoir was at maximum fill and new cracks in the concrete were discovered over the previous week, Mulholland and Harvey Van Norman arrived to investigate the dirty water and the dam as a whole. Arriving at 11 AM, the two men began to investigate the instability of the structure. The cause of the dirty water was seen to be clear water mixing with loose dirt from a newly constructed road Although alarming, it was seen as a problem that could be rectified later on. The rest of the structure was inspected and given a seal of approval. Well, how wrong they would be just 12 hours later. Around 8 PM, employees from one of the nearby powerhouses witnessed a 12-inch wide crack on a nearby road upstream from the dam, hinting towards the land around the dam beginning to shift. Ace Hopewell, Powerhouse No. 1's carpenter, was riding his motorcycle along the road nearby, passing the crest of the dam around 11:50 PM. He pulled up his bike and sidecar around a mile up from the dam to have a cigarette and to investigate a loud crashing sound. The Southern California Edison Company experienced a loss of power at 11:57 PM on their 70 kilovolt Boral power line that ran near the dam's left abutment, extending eastwards to Palmdale. The shorting out the power line hints at a large-scale landslide that enveloped the dam's entire left abutment, starting off the disaster. In the closing minutes of the 12th and the opening of the 13th of March 1928, the dam experienced a catastrophic failure. Within minutes, the majority of the dam had disappeared, leaving only a central section standing like an island. The flow of water was monumentous, forming a 140 feet high flood wave, washing away a large chunk of the wrecked dam, as 12.4 billion gallons of water surged down. The wave, travelling at around 18 miles per hour, destroyed Powerhouse No. 2, drowning nearly all the workers and their families who lived nearby. The floodwater overflowed the Santa Clarita River's banks, flooding present-day Valencia and Newhall. By 1 AM, the entire Santa Clarita Valley was plunged into darkness. A temporary construction camp set up by Edison Company was washed away, killing at least 84. The flood damaged the towns of Fillmore, Bardstown and Santa Paula, eventually emptying bodies and debris into the Pacific Ocean 54 miles downstream. The floodwater was thought to have killed at least 431 people, although this number doesn't count migrant workers, casual labourers and illegal immigrants, all of whom would have had no record of being in the region. Many dead were never found or identified, including dam keeper Tony Harnisfeger, although his wife's body was found near the dam, suggesting that a late night inspection was being undertaken, potentially due to the landslide sounds heard by Ace Hopewell. So how did such an impressive structure fail so catastrophically? There was, and there still is, differing theories on the failure. It is thought that the failure started with the left east abutment suffering a landslide. The left failed side was then swept in front of the dam, leaving debris as evidence of the likely side of first failure. A committee appointed by the Los Angeles City Council set about working on an official report into the failure. The key failure was placed at defective foundations, and the report essentially said the dam was well designed but poorly executed, with an error in judgment about the suitability of the area's geology as a stable foundation for the dam. The investigation, though, claimed it was the right western abutment that had failed first, owing to cracks discovered leading up to the disaster, but more modern analyses have speculated differently. Two alternate reports by Bailey Willis and Carl E. Grunsky support the left eastern side failure theory. They also focused into a phenomenon called hydrostatic uplift. This is where water seeps under a dam and causes an upward force on the dam, reducing its effective weight. Although known at the time, the phenomenon was not properly understood and the St. Francis Dam didn't take this into account, meaning that hydrostatic uplift mixed with an unstable land from historic landslips caused the failure at St. Francis. The dam was not rebuilt and for a short while became a morbid attraction for locals to come and collect souvenirs, as the single standing part remaining, known as the tombstone. The site would be cleared and the tombstone demolished in mid-1929 to detract the strange tourism to the area. Because the Mulholland Dam was essentially identical, 330,000 cubic yards was used to reinforce it from the risk of hydrostatic uplift. The Hollywood Reservoir that Mulholland holds up was not allowed to exceed 4,000 acre-feet of water. Mulholland's career also ended on the night of the 12th and the 13th of March 1928. During the inquest, he claimed full responsibility and retired in November the same year. No criminal charges were brought against the designers, with the inquest finding no evidence of criminal act or intent. Mulholland would die in 1935 at the age of 79.
know your hair type? No, not that one. Your real hair type. You know, the one that covers all the bases and gives you real insight on how to take care of your hair. It's not a secret that I'm not a big fan of the current hair typing system. I appreciate it because back when the natural hair movement started, it gave us a little peek of light into understanding our natural hair. But we have advanced really quick in a short period of time, and old habits die hard. So even though deep inside we all know that this system doesn't apply to us, it's hard to move on from it because it's well known and super simple. It may make some sense around the 1s, 2s, and maybe some 3s, but when you get to the 4s, things get complicated, mainly for 3 reasons. We are the most genetically diverse people on Earth, so we come in every color, and we have multiple hair types on our head of hair. Below is a link to a video that goes over this genetic diversity in more detail. Our curl pattern is way too complex to fit into just 3 groups. And our hair can be manipulated into any curl pattern, texture, and shape we want it to be in. It's really special. So I created a complete hair type chart. There's 6 things you need to know about your hair in order to truly understand it. After that, you'll know when your hair is happy or sad. You'll immediately know if and why something is not working, and you'll easily be able to build a really good hair regimen that works. If you watch Green Beauty videos, you've seen this chart a lot because it's important. So in the next few videos, I'm going to break down how to test, enhance, and change each line. Let's start with the curl pattern line. Your curl pattern is like your fingerprint, so it's no surprise that it's complex. Not only do we have multiple curl patterns, it also changes. A curl pattern is created from different ionic and chemical bonds in the cortex layer of your hair strands. The more and stronger the bonds are, the more of a curl pattern you have. Some bonds are weaker than others and temporarily detach when your hair comes into contact with heat or moisture. That's why your curl pattern is looser and more consistent when your hair is wet. If you let your hair air dry on its own, the bonds will reattach to random close by positions, making your curl pattern tighter and more inconsistent. For certain curl patterns, this can mean tons of complicated tangles and breakage. That's why it's important to set some type of mold as your hair dries. It's also another reason why scooping and spreading works so well for length retention. Very little moisture is needed to break a hydrogen bond. So a small amount of moisture from the spritz gently breaks the hydrogen bonds in your hair, just enough for you to manually help them reattach in a smoother, uniformed, and elongated way through spreading. There are other factors that go into where your unique curl pattern comes from. If you're interested, below is a link to a video that goes over those things in more detail. So overall, there are 4 main curl patterns. There's the eye pattern. At first glance, looks like it's just straight hair, but if you take a closer look, there are kinks or twists along the shaft. Fun fact! Relaxed and heat-damaged hair are clear examples of the eye curl pattern. But did you know that there are naturals with kinky eye curl patterns? Viv Hair Therapy here on YouTube is a good example of this. She has predominantly an I and an S curl pattern. Alright, great segue into the S curl pattern. If you take a closer look, the S curl pattern has repetitive stretch curves that make an S pattern. The O curl pattern are loops that curl up into itself like a slinky. The last curl pattern is the L or Z, depending on how you see it. These are sharp jagged bends, like the hair strand was crimped. Notice that all 4 curl patterns have kinks in them. That's why our hair is referred to as kinky curly. Below is a link to a video that explains why our hair has kinks. To be honest, if you look long enough, you'll probably find all 4 of these curl patterns in your hair. So try not to overthink this and focus on the most predominant patterns. To test your curl pattern, take 2 samples from multiple sections of your head. Make sure your samples are free of heavy gel-like products. Lighter products and oils are fine. Observe your curl pattern on stretched and shrunken hair. My stretch sample is a blowout that has been scooped and spread a few times, and I wet the hair strand to make my shrunken sample. I took samples from the back right and left sections, the middle, and the front right and left section. Yeah, some people actually have different curl patterns in all 5 of these sections. Let's take a closer look at my curl patterns. As a reminder, because of the kinks in our hair, our curl pattern is inconsistent and not the most straightforward thing to observe. In its shrunken state, the back right section of my hair has mostly an O curl pattern and some S pattern as well. But when it's stretched, it takes on more of an S curl pattern. Same with my back left section, middle section, front right, and front left sections of my hair. So overall, I have 2 predominant curl patterns in my hair, O and S. That's one small part of the reason why my hair benefits so much from stretching. When it's in its shrunken O curl pattern state, it tangles a lot. But when it's in a stretched S curl pattern state, it's a lot easier to avoid complicated tangles and retain length. My curl pattern is pretty consistent throughout my head, but not my texture. We'll talk about that in the next video. Here are some examples of other curl pattern combinations. Share your curl pattern below. You'll be surprised to see how diverse we all are. Also, do any of you have a predominantly L curl pattern? Your hair must look really cool. As mentioned earlier, your curl pattern can be changed. So let's go over the 2 only ways to change your curl pattern, either permanently or temporarily. Changing your curl pattern requires you to permanently break the stronger diphalside bonds in your hair with chemicals, heat damage, or over manipulation. It's a risk because with the structure of your hair compromised, it's in a weaker, more vulnerable state. Some examples of chemicals that can permanently change your curl pattern are relaxers, baking soda, and hair dyes. Below are videos on these 3 chemicals and details on how they work. A temporary change in curl pattern can be achieved with stretching, scooping and spreading, molding, and wash and goes. If done correctly, all of these options keep the structure of your hair intact and help you avoid tangles and breakage. Natural hair is so flexible, it can be temporarily molded into a new curl pattern with simple hairstyles like twists and bantu knots. As long as the humidity is low, the hydrogen bonds will stay intact and a curl pattern created by simple twists can last for several days. Caring for and enhancing your curl pattern is pretty straightforward. It's not hard to keep natural hair happy. It's more about consistency based on your lifestyle, of course. As long as you keep your scalp clean, your hair strands moisturized and lubricated, avoid tension and excessive tangles, are gentle with your ends, and maintain good internal health in your gut, your hair will flourish and your curl pattern will look its best. The way you go about achieving these things in your regimen is up to you. Nothing is set in stone. Just keep in mind that as you travel right on the curl pattern line, the more fragile your hair is and should be treated with more time, patience, and care. It's trickier to keep an O or L curl pattern free from excessive tangles and knots compared to an I and S curl pattern. There's less room for error, but the rewards are out of this world. Hopefully now you have a better idea of what your curl pattern combination is and what it means. In the next video, we'll talk about how to know for sure if your hair texture is loose, tight, or somewhere in the middle.
Dear students, in previous sessions, we discussed about skeleton in relation to movement and locomotion. We did understand that along with bones, the muscles and the nervous system are also important. And we discussed in detail about 206 bones which we have in our body, axial skeleton and also the appendicular skeleton. Axial skeleton, which makes axis of our body, includes skull, vertebral column and the rib cage, and appendicular skeleton will include the girdles and the limb bones. In skull, we studied about cranial bones, the facial bones. In vertebral column, we studied about vertebrae, and in rib, the rib cage and the way ribs are arranged in the rib cage, out of which the first 7 pairs, out of 12 pairs in the rib cage, the first 7 pairs are true ribs, 8th, 9th and 10th pair they are false ribs, and 11th and 12th are floating ribs. We did discuss the pectoral girdle, the pelvic girdle and the cavities in these 2 girdles to fix with the limb bones. In the forelimb, that is hand, we discussed all the 30 bones, and similarly in the leg bones, that is hind limb bones, we discussed about all the 30 bones of the leg. Today, we wish to show these bones in the skeleton and also in some models to make you understand their real arrangement in natural way in our body. Let's now see the skeleton and these bones the way we have them in our body. Children, we have reached near skeleton and I am quite excited to see all the bones in one vision in one go. I am sure you are equally interested to know about placement of these bones in our body, which we are going to discuss along with this skeleton. As you know, skeleton, there are 2 main divisions, axial skeleton, in which comes the skull, the vertebral column and the rib cage. As the name indicates, axial means axis, it makes axis of the body, and that is our head, our chest and the vertebral column. And other division is appendicular skeleton, which is going to include pectoral girdle, pelvic girdle, limbs, hind limb and the forelimb. Let me start explaining the bones in this skeleton, starting with head, which is part of axial skeleton. You can see skull here, it has 2 parts, the cranium and the facial bones. There are 8 bones in the cranium and there are 14 bones in the facial region. The cranium bones are attached to each other by sutures, so they do not move much. Facial bones are making the face. This is the lower jaw. You will be surprised to know that this lower jaw is part of skull, a continuation from skull, and this is the jaw which is movable. The upper jaw is not movable. Try to masticate something and you will see only lower jaw moves, and movement of lower jaw allows you to eat, to speak and use your mouth accordingly. You can also see the eye sockets where eyeball are kept. The eyeball completely fits into this and you can see only the exposed part of the eye. You can also see a small hole here through which the auditory canal goes. It is ear. You can see the arrangement of teeth on the two jaws. So, this is making the skull. Coming to second part of axial skeleton, which is vertebral column. Vertebral column begins here and continues. You can see this part, and now it will continue further. I will see this from this side and as well as this side. This is all vertebral column, and there are 26 vertebrae in our vertebral column. First one is atlas vertebra, on which the head is resting. It is a very delicate junction and very delicate part of our body. The last part of brain, you remember brain is here, and the last part of brain, the medulla oblongata or hind brain, continues as a spinal cord and runs through vertebrae. That means the hind part of brain will run through this atlas, then other vertebrae. For that, each vertebra has a special arrangement. Children, you can see the processes coming here on the back side also, and in the center there is a canal. Through that canal runs our spinal cord, and see what nature has provided a kind of protection for soft spinal cord, which is running from this point up to this point, and it is covered by these vertebrae on all the sides. Why do we have so many small pieces of bones called vertebrae in our backbone or in our vertebral column? So that there is flexibility in our body. We can move our body right, left or forward or backward, and in doing so our spinal cord is not damaged. Suppose it was one piece, then it would have been a huge pressure on the spinal cord, which is very soft tissue. First vertebra is atlas, second is axis. They have different names individually and independently. We have 7 cervical vertebra, this is cervical region. Then we have 12 thoracic vertebra, this is thoracic region. I can show you, this is thoracic region where you can see rib attachment. Then there are 5 lumbar vertebra, that is in lumbar region. Then we have 1 sacrum, it is fused, and 1 coccygeal, that is also fused. You can see a small tail like thing coming out, and that is why sometimes it is also called tail vertebra. This skeleton belongs to human. Suppose it was a skeleton of some other mammal, maybe cow, maybe cat, they have tail. This particular bone will continue in the tail, and that is why it is called tail vertebra. I hope you know, in the process of evolution we evolved from lower mammals who had tail. We do not have tail, but we have tail vertebra, showing that yes, our ancestors did have tail. So, this is about the vertebral column. After this, I come to third part of axial skeleton, ribs and rib cage. This is rib cage and these are ribs. We have 12 pairs of ribs attached to 12 thoracic vertebra. Each rib is attached with vertebra, thoracic vertebra on the dorsal side. Children, you know this is the dorsal side and this is the ventral side. That means this is my ventral side and that is back is dorsal side. So, ribs are attached to dorsal side to the vertebrae of vertebral column and ventral side to sternum. This is sternum. Again, this is an important bone. Out of 12 ribs, the first 7 ribs are directly attached to sternum. I will count for you. This is of course clavicle, it is not rib. I will explain this while talking about pectoral girdle. So, first rib is this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see their attachment with the sternum 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. All the 7 are attached to sternum on the ventral side, that is dorsal side, and these are called true ribs. Coming to 8th, 9th and 10th. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, now 8, 9, 10. These 3 which you are seeing 8, 9 and 10 pair. When I talk of ribs, it is always in pair. Now, these 3 are not attached directly to the sternum. You can see this was 7th, they are attached to the 7th. That is why this kind of curvature to the rib cage, and these 3 pairs of ribs 8, 9 and 10 are called false ribs. After this there are 2 more pairs 11 and 12. You can see this is 11 and this is 12. These are not attached ventrally, only dorsally, and they are called floating ribs. This natural arrangement is to give a proper shape to our rib cage, because rib cage is going to lodge 1 heart here and 2 lungs here. So, it should have spacing and the shape accordingly. At this point in a natural body is a diaphragm, this kind of position that makes thoracic cavity or rib cage airtight. It is very significant that this area should be airtight in normal case, so that respiration and circulation, that is functioning of heart and functioning of lungs, go on normally. So, this is about the rib cage, ribs, and last part of axial skeleton. So, children, I hope you have understood axial skeleton. We now come to appendicular skeleton, which will include 2 girdles and 2 limbs, pectoral girdle, pelvic girdle, forelimbs and hind limbs. This is forelimb or hand. I have taken it out to show the structural detail to you. Before I start explaining this, let me explain the pectoral girdle. Pectoral girdle has 2 equal halves, one for the left and other for the right side. It has a scapula, broad scapula, this is the one, and then it has a spike and a process called acromion process. Then it has a small depression here, a cavity, it is called glenoid cavity, into which our hand will fix. So, this is pectoral girdle, this is hand or forelimb, and we are going to understand bones in our hand. This is humerus, which is the upper part of the hand, and this is head of humerus, the round one, which is fixed in the glenoid cavity of pectoral girdle and is able to move, and that is why we can move our shoulder the way we want. This hand, this attachment is here. So, this is humerus. This is of course elbow. Coming to the lower part of hand, we have 2 bones. Can you see 2 bones? They are called radius and ulna. This one is radius, the strong one, and this slightly thinner one is ulna. Children, you can remember like this, The one towards the little finger is ulna, the one towards the thumb is radius. Now, after this comes the wrist. This is a wrist. There are 8 small bones in wrist. You can see small bones here, and when you make movement of your wrist like this, it is possible because of these small bones. Suppose there was one flat bone, then you could not move your hand or wrist in this fashion. After this will come 5 bones here which make your palm. So, these are carpals. The wrist bones are also called carpals, and these 5 palm bones are called metacarpals. After that are your fingers. Each finger has 3 bones. Similarly, you can see here. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. Whereas thumb has 2 bones, 1, 2. So, total 14 bones. As I told you, there are 30 bones in our hand. So, this is 1, 2, 3, then 8, then 5, then 14, that totals to 30 bones. You can definitely appreciate, children, the arrangement of small bones in your palm, in your fingers and in your wrist. Because of this, you are able to use your hand the way you want to, and hence these bones, small bones and the joints are very important. So, I have explained to you the pectoral girdle and the forelimb or hand bones. I put it back and then I proceed to hind limb and pelvic girdle. Children, now we will discuss about the pelvic girdle and the hind limb or leg bones. This is pelvic girdle. Pelvic girdle is also having 2 halves, the right and the left, equal halves for 2 legs. Each half has 3 bones, ilium, ischium, pubis, and 3 join at one point, and that point has a depression called acetabulum. Acetabulum is the cavity in which head of this bone called femur or thigh bone will fix and will be able to move. This is like ball, head is like ball, and acetabulum is like cavity. In that cavity this head will fix and will be able to move. One more thing to tell you, the pubic bone is very important. Between the pubic bones, the genitalia is placed. If there is any injury to pubic bone, the whole area in this part is very badly disturbed, including the aperture for urine or urinary aperture or anus or reproductive passages. So, this is a place, that is why it is called pubic bone, because it has pubis area in that genitalia is placed. Coming back to hind limb, which is attached to the pelvic girdle. This is the leg, this is the femur. Children, you know that leg also has 30 bones. This femur has the head which is fixed in acetabulum cavity of pelvic girdle, which allows the movement. Then knee, and after knee 2 bones, tibio and fibula. The fibula is feeble, small or weak, length is equal, but otherwise it is thin, and it is also towards the small toe, and this is towards the big toe. Similarly, like in forelimb, it has tarsals 8, then 5 metatarsals in the feet, and then 14 phalanges or digits, that makes it 30. So, the leg also has 30 bones. With this, we have understood the skull, the neck area, the vertebral column, the rib cage, the pectoral girdle, the forelimb, pelvic girdle and the hind limb, and importance of all these bones in our body. So children, you have seen a true skeleton. I am sure you have enjoyed seeing the bones in reality, the hand bones, the humerus, the leg bone, femur, and also tarsals, metatarsals, carpals, metacarpals, and it was so interesting to see the vertebrae and the canal through which the spinal cord goes. And you have also seen the importance and the significance of girdles in our body, the pectoral girdle, the way it is arranged to hold the hand, and the pelvic girdle, the way the arrangement allows the movement of leg, and how our bones are arranged in such a wonderful pattern so that we can move our body in a way we wish to, and we are able to do all the work. Children, finally, I want you to appreciate the arrangement of bones in our body, the flexibility, the utility of joints, tendons, the cartilages and ligaments. Can you imagine if we did not have this kind of flexible arrangement, our body could be in one piece. So in today's session, we have understood in detail the arrangement of bones, their significance and the joints and their utility in our body. With this, we come to the end of this session. Thank you.
Algorithm, and let's get started. Number 10 on the list is going to be biology. Now there's a ton of different types of biology out there, but even the best one, which is just normal biology, only ranks about 420 out of 835 possible degrees. Now I do feel bad about putting this one on here because by no means do I think that this knowledge is useless. But I think as a college degree from a personal finance perspective, this one is extremely overrated. Now let me explain why. I've known several people who have gone through undergrad, got their biology degree thinking that they would be able to easily get a good job afterwards, and then they weren't able to. Now one of them went all the way to getting her PhD in biology in order to get the job that she wanted. That's nuts if you ask me, and that's a huge red flag in my opinion that the degree is not worth it. When it comes to undergraduate degrees, you want to secure the bag. You want to make sure that just with that 4-year degree that you can get a job. At that point, if you choose to go back in order to further your education and get a master's or a doctorate, that's great, but at least you always have the choice to get a job at the 4-year mark. Remember, it should always be an option, not something that you have to do. And that's why biology is the second most regretted degree by graduates. And it's not necessarily that a biology degree is the worst, it's just so many people get this degree thinking that it's going to get them a good job, but unfortunately the actual value of the degree doesn't match up with the perception of it. Number 9 on the list is going to be psychology, and this is another degree that in my opinion is extremely overrated. This one ranks about 584 out of 835 possible degrees, and I think out of all the degrees that I talk about, this one has to get me the most hate. People think that I'm the devil for saying that this one's bad. Now this one's kind of like biology where it's pretty overrated, but in my opinion, I think it might actually be the most overrated degree out of any of them out there. And the reason for that is because biology has about 64,000 people graduating every year. Psychology's got over 100,000 graduates a year. They are pumping out psychology bachelors like a production line. Now, as you probably know if you watch my channel, there's pretty much no jobs available for a 4-year psychology degree. And because of that, so many people are forced to go to extremely expensive graduate school, take on those awful Grad Plus loans in order to even be able to have a chance of getting a job. Now, if you've been following my channel, I tell people to avoid graduate school except in very specific circumstances. It's much better to secure the bag, so to speak, with your undergrad degree, and then once you've done that, once you've gotten a degree where you can get a good job, then maybe consider going back to school and furthering your education. Number 8 on the list is going to be environmental related degrees. And there are a lot of them, but I'm just going to go ahead and choose environmental health science. This one is ranked 518 out of 835 possible degrees. Now this is another thing that you'll see these thirsty colleges doing over and over and over again, where they'll figure out a buzzword that's, got a lot of people really excited. A lot of people are passionate about the environment. Then they'll tack on health sciences or technology or engineering or all these different other words that make it seem like it's a legitimate major where you're going to be able to get a job afterwards. This is basically the equivalent of someone putting entrepreneur on their Tinder profile because of the fact that they bought $3.50 worth of Bitcoin.
2 words: entrepreneurship.
But the thing that almost nobody talks about is that this is not going to end up being a good financial decision the vast majority of the time. The truth is, the numbers on these degrees are awful, and they're probably not going to help you land a degree in the natural energy industry. A lot of people want to be involved in these industries, and because of that, there's a huge imbalance in supply and demand. So colleges, being the businesses that they are, have adapted to the excess demand, and they've created a bunch of different degrees that have the word environmental in it to see how many suckers, fish bite. Why major in biology when you can major in environmental biology? Or how about we throw in some other buzzwords and we go for a degree where it's an environmental resource manager? With the word management in it, it must be a really high-paying skill set, right? Nope, that one's even worse. Now, before you freak out, dislike the video, leave a bunch of hater comments. If you're passionate about environmental related stuff, that's awesome, cool, that's your thing. There's a ton of degrees out there that are not so good, but there's also a few that are decent. All I'm saying is make sure to do your research. Just because it has the word environmental in it doesn't mean it's going to be a good investment. Number 7 on the list is going to be agriculture. Now, this is one where it might sound like it would rank really well, but in reality, it just doesn't. This is all about crops and farming and, the food production industry. And the truth is, in order to learn about this industry, like being a farmer, for instance, you're not going to learn how to do it in a classroom. The best thing for you to do would be to just work on a farm, for instance, if you want to become a farmer, learn the industry, learn the trade, and then eventually you can start your own. The way I think about degrees like this is there are certain skills where you really just can't learn them out of a book or in a classroom setting. Now imagine if they made a basketball major, for instance. Do you think that you could learn how to be an elite basketball player by reading out of a book or being in a classroom? How are you going to learn how to even dribble the ball just by reading a book? You're not. The best way for you to learn how to dribble the ball is to go and dribble the ball. If you spent 4 years just going on a team and learning how to play basketball, that would be much better than spending 4 years learning how to play basketball from a classroom or reading it out of a book. Not to say film study and stuff like that isn't important, it definitely is, especially at the higher levels. But before you get into any of that stuff, before you even understand any of that stuff, you have to know how to dribble the ball, shoot the ball, and all of that sort of thing. So this is a perfect example of one of those types of skills where going to college is not going to help you at all. Number 6 on the list is going to be forestry. This one is ranked 485 out of 835 possible degrees. Now this one kind of has the combination of the problem that the environmental degrees as well as the agriculture degrees have, kind of both of those together. You're probably better off just entering the industry at the bottom and then working your way up and getting better and better jobs. It's also really popular because people love nature, and who wouldn't want to get paid to be in forests and just walking around nature all the time? But the numbers on this one are even lower, and that's why it ranks worse on the list. Okay, number 5. Are you ready for this one? Life sciences. Okay, so I had to look up the definition on this one to figure out what the heck it is. It's the sciences concerned with the study of living organisms. That kind of sounds like biology to me. And biology degrees already have the issue of being a little bit too general, so this one's even more general than that. Now, when your knowledge is too general, employers and hiring managers are going to have a really difficult time justifying why they're going to hire you because they're not really sure how your knowledge is going to help out the business. The whole point of going to college is to get specialized knowledge that's going to help you to become an expert in a certain area. So whenever you see degrees that are just way too general, kind of like this one, life science, for instance, that's kind of a red flag in my opinion. Now the next 2 degrees are going to be perfect examples of universities slapping the word science onto something else in order to make it sound like it's legit. Number 4 on the list is going to be ranked 665 out of 835 possible degrees. And it's going to be plant science. Plants are cool, right? They're harmless little critters that are colorful and fun to look at. It would be cool to major in that, right? Or how about number 3, which is animal science, which ranks 680 out of 835. How about animals? Even better than plants. I mean, who doesn't love animals? Now, some genius probably started a program like this. A bunch of people were interested in it because it sounded cool, and then it started to spread across the country. I'm not saying that these things aren't cool or worth studying, but it comes to getting an actual degree in this. The purpose of getting a degree is in order to get a job later on. And this one has some of the worst numbers on the entire list. You're gonna have a very hard time finding employment. But it's not anywhere near as bad as the next one on the list, which is by far the worst, and that is mortuary science. This one ranks 744 out of 835 options. That's pretty bad, and it's hard to imagine a science degree that ranks much worse than some of the art degrees even, but this is one of them. If you're interested in becoming a mortician and running a funeral home or a morgue or something along those lines, a quick Google search will tell you that morticians don't even have to get a bachelor's degree. Most of them just have an associate's. Never mind having a degree specifically in mortuary science. This is a totally unnecessary major. Now, this one does have the worst statistics on the entire list, but I didn't rank it as number 1 because the next one is really bad, almost as bad as this one, but it's also an incredibly popular major as well. And that is going to be exercise science. This one ranks 740 out of 835 possible degrees. And every year, 16,000 people graduate with an exercise science degree in the United States. Now, they all probably go into it thinking that they're gonna have a lot of job opportunities that open up for them, and this is one of the worst on the list when it comes to the numbers. Now, a lot of them go into it thinking that they'll become a fitness instructor after they graduate, and that's great. According to BLS, there's 356,000 jobs available, and it's growing at 13%, which is really good. The only problem here is that the average fitness instructor only has to have a high school diploma. You definitely don't need to go to college in order to learn these skills. The market is already pretty saturated. There's a ton of people graduating with this degree, and at the end of the day, people only care about the results that you can get them. They don't care about you babbling on and on about this study or that study. They don't care about any of that.
I can't understand a word you're saying.
All they really care about is, can you get them in shape? Can you make it fun? And how much is it going to cost? So if you go into this degree, you're probably going to be wasting a ton of time as well as money. Now, I hope I didn't offend anyone or anything like that. I'm just trying to give you guys the honest truth about the reality of this situation. A lot of college degrees out there are simply not worth it. But there's a few things that I want to talk about when it comes to science degrees specifically that I think are especially important. The number one thing is you want to make sure you know what career or what industry that you're going into. You need to have that goal in mind. You need to know where you're going. You don't just want to get a degree and then you'll be like, oh, I'll figure out the job afterwards. A degree is meant to teach you specialized skills that will help you in certain careers. So if you don't know what career you're going for, you're not going to know what skills that you need to learn. You're also not going to know who to network with or what jobs would be good and look good on a resume or what, groups that you should join. All these things will become very clear when you know what career you're going for. You can contact a person who's already doing that career and ask them what their opinion on it is as well. You can ask them questions like, what double majors would be good, or what minor would be good? What skills should I learn? What looks impressive to somebody hiring on a resume? Now, once you have a really good idea of the career that you want to go for, you can then reverse engineer it and figure out what steps you need to take in order to get there. Those steps might involve getting a college degree, and that's great. Sometimes those steps might not involve getting a college degree. You don't even have to get one. I think the most common example of that is getting a criminology degree in order to become a police officer. Totally unnecessary. You don't have to get that degree, yet tens of thousands of people fall for that every single year. Now, after you've researched the steps that it's going to take in order for you to get to your goal, then you can make a really good plan in order to get there. You're not going to just be like a feather floating in the wind, hoping that you can possibly land on a good job opportunity after you graduate. You're going to know exactly where you're going and exactly what steps you need to take in order to get there. Now, the fourth tip that I'm going to give is, especially when it comes to science degrees, this will likely involve focusing on skills, work experience, and networking. Now, let's say you're just getting a general biology degree and you have no idea what career you're going to go into. You just really enjoy biology. You're going to have a very hard time focusing on the right skills that you should be learning in order to make yourself more appealing to someone who's going to maybe hire you. You're also going to have a very difficult time networking with the right people as well because you don't know what job you're going for. And you're also going to have a hard time with work experience because you're likely just going to get a general job that has nothing to do with your future.
boxing gloves? Where's water balloon? 3, 2, 1. Yeah, dude, I felt it hit my elbow.
plus a weed whacker. evolutionary process going on. But mankind won't be destroyed. The fact that you and I are working here today is evidence.
Water balloon plus a baseball bat. Let's go. Oh, that was solid. That was really solid.